Welcome to Smokenders. My name is Philip Feinstein, and I've been instructing the Smokenders program for the past 20 years. The Smokenders program is tried and proven. It began in the USA in 1969 and in Australia in 1981, and is the only program where over 92% of participants who completed the program stopped smoking. Over 1 million people throughout the world, including over 35,000 Australians, have completed the program. And I'm very, very proud to be one of them. But right now, what is this complex habit that we call smoking? Why do people smoke? Why do you smoke? Chances are you do it for all kinds of reasons. Reasons that are physical, psychological, social, emotional, and economical. Some people who don't smoke may have said to you something like, "Why don't you just stop that nasty little habit? You know it's not good for you and it costs a lot of money. Plus it smells and stains your fingers." But at Smokenders, we realize that smoking is in fact a very complex problem, affecting us on many, many different levels. First of all, smoking is a physical addiction. However many cigarettes we smoke per day, we normally smoke about the same number. Let's have a look. A 10-a-day smoker would not need 60 cigarettes, but a 60-a-day smoker could never get by with only 10. That's why you find however many you smoke per day, you're normally smoking about the same amount. Have you ever switched to a low tar, low nicotine cigarette? If you have, I bet you smoked a few more. And that's because we need to maintain a certain amount of nicotine in our blood, otherwise we feel uncomfortable. Most of us would say that we enjoy smoking. But just have a think about this. At Smokenders, we have a concept we call the discomfort theory. Its basis is as follows. We know that a smoker needs a cigarette when they have not had one after a sufficient interval of time, and that this need is both psychological and physiological. We take a cigarette to relieve the discomfort caused by the addiction. In other words, as smokers, we create the source of our own discomfort. The last cigarette generates the need for the next one. We then translate this relief of discomfort into enjoyment. This is what we call pleasure. It's not much, but we're willing to settle for it. But wouldn't you agree that the relief of discomfort is not a true criteria for defining pleasure? Smoking is actually a vicious cycle, with each cigarette producing the need for the next one. Hardly enjoyable. Not only does smoking involve you physically, but it also involves you psychologically. For example, how many times have you had a cup of coffee or tea and not had a cigarette with it? How many times have you had a glass of wine or a beer without smoking? What about talking on the phone or when driving? And why do you think you always have a cigarette immediately after breakfast, lunch or dinner, or any food for that matter? It isn't because our body always needs the cigarette, but there is a psychological attachment to smoking when doing all these things. And there are many other psychological situations which make us think we need to have a cigarette. We call them smoking triggers. Have you ever thought about your smoking triggers? Of course, there are all kinds of social situations in which people smoke. When one person lights up a cigarette, all the other smokers in the group will probably light up as well. Despite what non-smokers might think, smoking is still a social pastime. Think about the last time you had a 3-course meal. Did you go for a cigarette between courses? Then there is the emotional aspect of the habit. Any emotional type of situation. You get some good news, you get some bad news, the car won't start, you miss the bus, you have an argument with someone, the kids are screaming. These all cause different types of emotional feelings in each of us, And for a smoker, their automatic reaction is to light up a cigarette. But the cigarette doesn't change anything. It doesn't fix the car, or bring the bus back, or change the news, or stop the kids carrying on, does it? Smoking also involves you economically. It's a very expensive addiction. A pack of cigarettes these days costs about $10. If you smoke about a packet a day, that's $70 a week. Per month, that's about $300 or over $3,600 a year. I won't even mention the costs over 10 or 20 years, or the additional costs such as burns in the clothing, petrol to go to the local shop, and so forth. Suffice to say, it's a scary amount of money, all going up in smoke. That money could well be spent on something that is good for you, rather than something which is slowly and surely destroying you. So because smoking involves you physically, psychologically, socially, emotionally, and economically, it's not just a nasty little habit. It is a very complex problem that requires a systematic, step-by-step solution. And that is exactly what the Smokenders program is.